Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Allison Jimenez. I'm over in Palm Beach County, Florida, so I'm on the other side of the state. But what I'm going to be talking about today is a topic that really is universal and can be used anywhere that you're at. And it's very important in the work that you all do as mentors, as volunteers. So let me see here if I can go ahead and share my screen and get started. So the topic that we're going to be talking about today, this is a pretty in-depth topic, but we don't have all the time in the world today to talk about it. So I kind of condensed it down for you. So what this topic is, it's the Intro to Cultural Intelligence and Competency in Mentoring Relationships. So this was put together by myself and several other contributors from across the country that are all in the field of mentoring. So what does cultural intelligence or competency mean to you? Does anybody want to put in the chat what that means to you, or maybe unmute yourself?
To me, cultural intelligence means the ability to navigate across cultures and communicate with people from various cultures.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Thank you for sharing that. So cultural competence is also known as intercultural competence. It's a continuous and lifelong journey to increase our people's skills in being proficient in intercultural and intracultural knowledge, which can improve the ability to work with people from different cultures. As you know, here in Florida, we are so diverse, right? We have so many different cultures. Within the school districts that we work in or volunteer in, within the community. And I think that's actually a really beautiful thing, because with cultural competence, we can learn so much about cultural intelligence. And that can be understood as the capability to relate and work effectively across cultures, bearing similarity to the term cultural agility. So cultural intelligence actually starts with emotional intelligence, which is it's important to have emotional intelligence because it creates self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. I'm just reading the chat. So are some people having audio issues? Everybody's good? Okay.
I think we're all good.
Okay. So emotional intelligence is being aware that all people have implicit bias. Whether we want to or not, we are all guilty of implicit bias. So what is implicit bias? Implicit bias is the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, our actions, and our decisions in an unconscious manner. So implicit bias can encompass both favorable and unfavorable assessments of others. They're activated involuntarily without our awareness. They're not accessible through introspection, and sometimes they can lead to feelings and attitudes about other people that are based on their characteristics such as race, ethnicity, age, and appearance. These develop over a lifetime, beginning at a very early age through exposure to direct and indirect messages. So oftentimes we grow up in a household, right? And in our households, sometimes we're taught things about certain people, about the way certain people look, maybe even about other people in our household, right? We're kind of, these messages are ingrained into us, and that's what becomes our implicit thoughts. Those are what becomes our implicit bias towards other people. So implicit bias can also include microaggressions and stereotypes. So microaggressions are verbal, behavioral, or environmental slights that are the results of an individual's implicit bias. So they're often automatic or unintentional. They can occur on a daily basis. And microaggressions can communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative viewpoints of others. And the use of microaggressions, they actually perpetuate this worldview of a white supremacy culture. So a stereotype is a widely held but oversimplified belief about a particular type of person or a group. And it happens when somebody groups individuals together based on some factors and makes a judgment about them without knowing them. So these are some common examples of implicit bias or microaggressions. So here you'll see this young woman, she has a sign that says alien, or you don't talk like you're Black, or you speak English well for being a Mexican. You're not like the other Black people I know, you speak so well. You speak excellent English, where are you from? Or all lives matter, or you're so articulate. Everyone can succeed if you just work hard enough. So those are some examples. Here's another one. No, where are you really from? Well, you don't speak Spanish. You don't act like a normal Black person. So these are just common things that, believe it or not, people say very often that they don't realize can be harmful to the person that they're saying it to. Are you the new diversity hire? Wow, you're more articulate than I expected. These are all microaggressions, and oftentimes people say them as things that they don't think are harmful, but they are, because they don't realize that they're harmful because it's just something that's been normal to them their whole life. So what do implicit bias and microaggressions look like in education, work, and other opportunities? There's a short video here that will kind of explain what that looks like when we talk about the workplace, when we talk about education and the different sectors that we all might work or volunteer in.
Let's look at how to measure bias in ourselves and in others. Here's Dolly Chu from NYU.
We sent emails to real professors in real universities.
They contacted over 6,500 professors at random from 260 American universities.
We sent them an email that looked like it came from a real person asking for a meeting to learn more about the PhD program in that university. But we randomly assigned whether the fictional person sending that email had a name that sounded male or female and sounded white, Chinese, Hispanic, Indian, or Black. What we found that is if you were a white male, you were far more likely to receive a response back than if you were in all those other categories put together as a group.
Some of this could be explicit racism, but it's far more likely that in many cases, these professors are just busy. They can't respond to every email they get. So they kind of let their subconscious decide for them. And that's where their biases come through. Research shows that our racial biases are often more about who we choose to help than who we don't. And we tend to help people who are similar to us. But you aren't 6,500 randomly selected professors. So how can you figure out where you might be making similar unconscious choices? First, there's a well-known test online you can take that can help show you biases you hold. Or
just do an audit. Whatever data you have, whether it's formal data in a computer or whether it's just data that's sort of anecdotal, look at the data. For example, I met this fantastic executive in Silicon Valley. He takes great pride in being someone who actively tries to achieve gender balance on his team, knowing that Silicon Valley and tech are skewed heavily male.
So he looked at his professional social network, his Twitter, his LinkedIn.
He found his network was far more skewed male than he expected. So there's a place where he could actively work to shift that, and that's what he's been doing since then.
So this is not a scientifically exact self-audit, but it can still be useful, and you can audit anything. So maybe start by taking that online test for bias. Maybe check out whose emails you're replying to. But you can also audit yourself for implicit bias by asking a friend to observe you in the real world. If you're a teacher, have people look at who you call on most in class, whatever your interactions are.
One practical thing that people should do is take stock of their friends. It would be very useful for people to actually make lists of people with whom they spend time.
Look for patterns. That's the audit. That's the assessment we can all do.
Let's look at how to measure.
So, how does anybody feel about that video?
It's short.
It is short, but concise.
I want to know more.
I know. This training could really go a full day if we had the time today. But this is where I want everybody to kind of to take stock of what they felt watching that video.
I was feeling pretty good about myself until I got to that chart about how many friends do you have and what race are they.
But
And
most people tend to hang with those that are like them. So if I have more people in my neighborhood that are white, female or male, I'm going to hang with those more so than go outside my neighborhood just because someone is a different race or religion.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that makes plenty of sense, because oftentimes we do hang out with the people that live in our communities, and we do hang out with the people that we may go to church with. But when we do that, it kind of closes us off to all the other opportunities to see things differently. So that's kind of what this, video was addressing, is that these are the things that take place, and it's not even intentional, right? Because it's not like blaming somebody for, hey, you didn't do this or that, or you only responded to this guy. It's really because these are unconscious or subconscious things that we do that we don't even mean to do.
Allison, real quick, your video was a hit. There's lots of different things in the chat box. I just kind of want to summarize that for you. First of all, people would love a copy of the video. It sounds like, based on the conversation, if there's a longer version or additional ones, that would be great. And with the logistics of it, if you would want to send it to me or Debbie, we can get it to the group as well. And then Sheila had a question about the link for the online bias test that you were discussing. Somebody else chatted in the box, the Harvard test. I know there's a couple different ones. The implicit bias test that you can take online. So if there's one in particular that you have used that you really like, if you could also send that to me, and then I could get that out, and then it'll become a little bit more of a, I'm going to say, self-exploration, reflection kind of homework. But I think especially after today's training and video and what we're talking about, it's going to generate a lot of interest, and people on their own are going to kind of want to do that. So to everyone asking questions, thanks so much. And then Allison, afterwards we can talk offline and get all of those materials together and then out to our mentors.
Absolutely. I'll make
Thank
sure
you.
we all get these videos. There's actually some more that I took out of here just because it was condensed, but I'll make sure to get those to you. So I asked how you're feeling after this. Some of you said that you felt good until you watched the video. Those are kind of normal feelings to have afterwards. Or have you ever experienced anything similar? Are you aware of it? Time in your life where maybe you have voluntarily or involuntarily had implicit bias. The reality is that we are all imperfect humans, and the only way to do better is to know better, right? So I commend you all for being here today and taking the time to learn. So in this presentation, it talks about here in Palm Beach County, because that's where I'm located. And I know that you all have a very similar school district. So how can we be more aware of these in our mentoring relationship? So awareness starts with educating ourselves and being empathic to others' cultural beliefs and differences. Florida's public education system identifies over 200 first languages other than English that are spoken in the homes of our students. So here in Palm Beach County, where I'm at, we're the 10th largest in the nation and the 5th largest in the state of Florida, which again is very similar to your district. And we serve more than 197,000 students that speak more than 146 languages and dialects, representing more than 190 different countries. So very similar to where you are. The students that we serve, and I'm sure you all see it, if you're mentors or volunteers in the district, there's so many different types of students from all over the world that come to Florida. So this means that we can learn so much about one another, and what better opportunity to learn than through mentoring. Mentoring changes 2 lives, so not just the life of the student, but also your life. because you can learn much from your mentee. Putting your mentee in a giving or leading role and educating you about anything builds their sense of well-being, their confidence, and their leadership skills. So you can build cultural humility, and the most important way to develop cultural humility is to be honest with your mentee about what you know and what you don't know, and then be authentically interested in learning more about their culture if and when they want to share. You can leave your preconceptions, judgments, and beliefs at the door and be open to learning from your mentee, because mentees really thrive when they teach and they lead. And when you want to learn about their culture, you can give them the opportunity to teach and lead. So some of the questions that you could, ask is, what are their culture's beliefs? What are their cultural values? What are their culture's shared experiences? What are their culture's rules? And what is their culture proud of? Those are really important questions, because oftentimes we might interact with a young person, and if it's someone from a different culture, something that might seem really odd to us is a norm for them. So it's important to find out, what are their beliefs, what are their values. I see some chat, but I'm trying to get to it. Okay, good. Thank you for sharing that. So this is another video. I like to include these visuals because I think talking a lot can sometimes bore people. So I like to include these visuals. And this is an example of a mentoring relationship that I personally know. And how just being open-minded can teach you so many things about the different sides of people. And I think it's very impactful and will be very beneficial for you all as well.
Growing up, 18-year-old Charlie Alexis was juggling his busy life in Lake Worth.
I had 2 jobs. So one job, I had to wake up every morning at 1 a.m. to go and deliver newspapers. And then I'd get home about around 5, 6 a.m. And that was a 7 days a week job. So I worked that every day. And then I also worked at Little Caesars.
Charlie, who was raised by his single mother, was always working to provide for his family. He's one of 6 siblings, so by nature, he's used to supporting others. But when the pandemic hit, Charlie found himself needing that support.
Schooling was easier in person, but when it had to become online, it got tough, as in procrastination, not wanting to get up to go to school, not seeing your friends every day, because believe it or not, your peers help you try harder and make you a better person. So without that, I was lost in the beginning.
Lost, but with the help of his mentor, Bill Marinette, who's more like a father to Charlie, he was able to successfully get through high school and earn a full ride to Lynn University in Boca Raton. The two are no doubt different, but it's their differences changing their outlook on life.
When I would go outside, if I would see a Caucasian or a white person, I would just tend to fade away, like want to take 1 or 2 steps back. But now, knowing not everybody's racist, with Bill, I learned that I can approach you.
Charlie, who I respect, has another perspective, right? The Black person's perspective in this world, where he's afraid to walk down the street late at night, even though he just came back from basketball practice, right? He's afraid he's in a store shoplifting because he's got a bag, he's going to be arrested for shoplifting. And he's explained events. I'd be afraid too.
The mentoring program called Path to College is designed to help low-income, high-achieving students like Charlie get into college. But Bill managed to help him in so many other ways. He gave Charlie a head start on his career path of becoming a pilot by giving him his first small plane ride. He also challenged him in the classroom and taught him how to play golf. The two say this program helped them in ways they would have never imagined.
So as you can see, you can relate to your mentee, even if you're different. And what I really love about their story is that they both went into this mentoring relationship with these preconceived ideas of each other based on their lived experiences prior to meeting each other. I remember that day when I spoke to Bill, he was telling me that he's like, I don't understand why when we first met, he would dress a certain way, or certain things that he would tell me about his home life, right? Because they grew up completely different and culturally just completely different, very different set of circumstances in their upbringing, right? Bill grew up very privileged. He went to a top university. His family had money. Whereas you see his mentee is working 2 jobs overnight and going to high school during the day. So it really gave them this opportunity to get to know one another differently, but not just each other, the way the world works entirely. So you can relate to your mentee. You can be clear that you can't know exactly what your mentee has gone through, even if you've had very similar experiences. The work is to tap into similar experiences that you've had. Maybe times that you had to make a change, maybe you didn't feel accepted, you experienced setbacks, you were left out, times that you feared for your safety and well-being, or any other experiences similar to those that your mentee might be facing. You can share what you're comfortable sharing, but be clear that you know you cannot experience the same exact thing as someone else, even though they may be very similar. So dealing with labels and stereotypes is pretty unavoidable. Again, everybody has them, and probably everybody at some point has used them. Sometimes they're negative, sometimes they're positive. So it's really important to just be aware of them and the ways that they influence us, especially in mentoring. Values influence the decisions that a person makes in his or her life regarding work, education, and relationships. So we learn values through interactions with cultural institutions such as the family, media, religion, peer groups, government. So a mentor's role is not to change your mentee's values, but rather you can help a young person to better articulate their source of values while also modeling, putting their values into action. Mentoring is not about fixing or saving your mentee. Your primary responsibility as a mentor is to honor the inherent worth that each child brings into the world and respect his or her special cultural background. A difference in culture and values, it's not something that needs to be fixed, right? Both mentor and mentee must work toward understanding each other's cultural values to build a strong relationship. So you can stay in the relationship even when it may be challenging at times. I hear all the time when a mentor and mentee first get matched, like, I don't know what to talk about with them. We just don't relate to each other at all. That's the perfect relationship because you both can learn so much from each other, and it will be challenging at times. But just like any relationship, building a strong relationship takes time and effort, and the process is different for everyone. So be humble. You don't know, nor will you ever know everything about your mentee's life, and that's fine. You don't have to over-identify with him or her. Your mentee realizes that you will never exactly know what they're feeling or experiencing, but oversharing sometimes it can actually make them feel invalidated, that you don't really know where they're coming from. So it's just important sometimes to just listen, to just hear them out, and ask some of those questions that I shared prior to. So mentoring is a process and not a destination. So enjoy the process, seek support from program staff when needed. You're sure to make a difference in the life of a young person, and you will probably experience more benefits than you can imagine. So for more mentoring tips, there's a series here that I put in the chat. And again, I will share this so you have all of these links, but that concludes our presentation for today. I did put here in this last slide some references for cultural competency. So communicating with Hispanics and Latinos, Haitian cultural values and norms. And if there's specific, I think I saw in the chat, somebody had put some other specific cultures that they wanted more information on. I can definitely include those for you as well. But if there's other cultures too that you want to learn more about and maybe you're not finding the information that you need, you can definitely reach out to Debbie and I will get that information over to you all. Does anybody have any thoughts, comments?
Allison, real quick, I just wanted to jump in. So just so people know a little bit more about the structure of today's coffee hour, because it is a little bit different. We wanted to give Allison a full 30 minutes to present. And when we met with her, I felt pretty strongly that I thought that people were going to have a reaction to it. Again, that there would be a point of reflection, but also some questions. So we felt, especially with today's topic, because we know that we're getting into some areas that can be a little bit dicey, let's be honest. We're using some words, we're talking about some things. So part of what I wanted to do first is give you guys the opportunity to ask Allison questions. She's here, so I see in the chat box, there's some specific requests about different cultures, things like that. Then after we have a period of where you'll be asking Allison questions, we're going to give you guys a breakout today and a longer breakout room. And we're just going to do one today. So I know with different coffee hours, depending on the topic, the structure can be a bit varied, the amount of time, the number of breakout rooms. And with a topic like this, again, we really felt like people were going to want to say some things and really talk about, their reaction to it, how they felt, how they can use this, what they're learning today to be proactive, to utilize the different things that we're learning in our mentor sessions. So with that said, I'm not sure how many questions there are going to be, but I would like to start the breakout rooms no later than 11:40, because I want to give you guys a solid 15 minutes to talk, reflect, and then the 5 minutes to come back. So I'm going to turn it back over to Allison. And if anybody has questions, you can put them in the chat box, or you can unmute and ask Allison directly.
Allison,
Yes,
can you hear me?
I can.
Somebody has to be the first one. When your presentation was excellent, I appreciate that, and your references I'll be looking to, because sometimes you hear something and you say, well, my goodness, I kind of relate to that. What does it mean? So I appreciate the opportunity to go back over this, as well as your resources, and I'm sure your personal availability if we need it. I know that there's a couple things that come to my mind. One is a friend of mine from Scotland once said, education is a lifelong process. What happens is we as mentors, we are looking at to educate ourselves so we can be better mentors and relate to the people that we're mentoring. And it can be a whole education in itself, but sometimes a big task like that, you just have to take a smaller step. So whether it's talking to your mentor and listening, because I sometimes remind some people I know, I have 2 ears. I'm supposed to probably use those more than my mouth. So somebody somewhere along the way invented 2 ears rather than 2 mouths. And we all know sometimes that people have a number of mouths and no ears. And that's not Disney related, okay? And the other is that there's so much, and I try to pick one subject. So it may be his interest in sports, it may be something that's going on, it may be something on his family, and follow through that repeatedly, because there is something he's bringing up, I want to reinforce and find out more about it so I can engage. And then the last issue I want to mention is there's so much conflict in our country. And what I try to do with some of my relatives on political issues, I say, what is something we all agree? Usually most people will agree education is kind of important. So let's look at education without bias. Let's not look at Republican, Democrat. Let's look at what can we do to improve education in our community, rather than try to take all of the causes that are out there. And with that, we will have like-minded people. So in that group, hopefully you'll have different demographics, age, race, religion, etc. And when you're working in a common cause, you have more of a chance to understand these people's interest, and also comes up some of their background that's important to understand when they voice their opinions and ideas. 2 cents.
Yeah, absolutely, Richard. And that's what's so important. It's, it's okay to surround yourself with people who don't think the same way as you. I have classmates that we have completely differing beliefs on a lot of topics. And when people, sometimes my other friends will say, well, how can you hang out with her? Well, because it's an opportunity for me to learn more about why she feels the way she does. I don't have to agree with somebody to respect the differences. And I think that's what's very important, is that it doesn't matter what your age is. As Richard said, we're lifelong learners. As long as we are still here living, we have the capacity to learn. And I just think that's really cool, right? I plan on learning as long as my brain can allow me to, because the only way to do better in our world and our society is to be open-minded and to be willing to listen and learn. And it's important. You do have 2 ears and 1 mouth, because you want to listen more than you speak, because just hearing somebody else is really how you're going to see and learn a completely different perspective. So thank you for sharing that.
Allison, I have a quick question. You gave a lot of great information, but as we talk with mentors that work with elementary students, middle school, and high schoolers, how would you kind of advise, how do you differentiate those conversations based on levels?
So that's a great question. Thank you, Valerie. I think that I was actually reading one of the questions in the chat that Kathy had said. She has a first grade student who's biracial, and the family's never had contact with the Black side of the family. Her race is yet to be openly discussed. That's difficult because the family's never talked about it, right? So you don't want to overstep the boundaries that the family has put in place, and maybe some reason as to why they haven't spoke about it. But I think it's important to realize that when you are speaking with them, your younger elementary age students, they're not going to be, some of them may be more aware of some things that they're experiencing when it comes to race, or I think Kathy said, is choosing crayon colors, is how to color, her skin tone. Those are the things that you're going to notice with those elementary age kids. They're not going to have the verbal ability yet to come out and say what a high school age student or middle school age student may share. Especially like the pictures that I used in the presentation, right? Some of them, well, you speak very well for being a Black person, or you don't look Spanish, or how do you not speak Spanish if you have a Spanish last name? That's something that I get all the time. I don't speak Spanish and my last name's Jimenez because I married a Hispanic man, right? So I think it's really when you're talking to them, depending on their age, it's important for us to kind of pick up on those things as the adult in the relationship. And having the difficult conversations when they're in elementary, it is going to be a bit of a challenge, Valerie. I definitely think with those middle and high school age students, you can learn, but I think even something that I do, I'm also a therapist, and something I do with the younger kids that can't speak, I'm like, draw me a picture of what your house looks like. Draw me a picture of your family. Draw me a picture of something you enjoy doing with your family. And that can actually start conversations with them as well. And you don't have to be a therapist to do that, right? Because younger elementary age kids, they love to draw. And that is how they express themselves. So I just lacked ideas, Valerie. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions for Allison? All right, so what we're going to do at this time is Debbie is going to assign you guys to breakout rooms, and then different people from our office are going to be in there kind of as facilitators. Listening, will be contributing if you have any questions. But basically, as I said earlier, the topic that we want to talk about is, so Allison just gave her presentation on cultural intelligence and competency in mentoring relationships. So everything with what we've learned today, the different videos that we watched, some of this talk about some of these follow-up activities we can do. think about what you guys learned today during the presentation, or things that maybe you would like to learn more about based on the conversations we're having, and how you can bring that back into the mentor sessions. So if you kind of want to start with just sort of a general topic, overview, conversation, and then more importantly, our goal in doing this especially is how it's going to impact you at your level. So think about the student or students that you are mentoring, and think about what you're learning today and how you can pull that back into the mentor sessions that you're having. So Debbie's going to, again, go ahead and assign breakout rooms, and then we'll meet back here, I would say sometime between 11:50 and 11:55, just so we can give some time that you guys can share your responses with the larger group.
Can anybody hear me?
Welcome
Kathy,
back,
no.
everyone. You
Yay!
are back in.
Thought I got kicked off. Okay, awesome.
We are all back in the main session. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us and joining in the breakout rooms. I'm going to hand this back over to Lisa.
Hi, everybody. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I hope that you guys had the same experience that we had in our breakout rooms, which was a very healthy discussion about, different concerns and different things going on, some success stories. I think the big takeaway from our group, and Laura had mentioned this if she wants to unmute, but just the idea of just kind of classifying culture sort of in one bucket. We had a very lively discussion about what it means to have the culture as an American. What does that mean? So when we're talking about different cultures in different places, and it kind of segued into different conversations, but the important takeaway that we felt was going in to just understand that everybody has a different background. Culturally, even Americans have different backgrounds. Maybe we identify with more of a culture that we have, maybe if you're a mix of, for example, European ethnicities, and if you're German, and if you're French, and if you're English, and at different times of the year, certain cultures might become more apparent. And then within that, we have individual people, and each person is different. So you kind of couple all of that together, and just the perspective of, we handle things delicately, we learn as much as we can, we go in, we show empathy, we try to meet the needs of our student, and our breakout room was great. So if anybody else wants to share some of their takeaways, what they talked about or what they learned. 2 minutes left. I want to give anybody else the opportunity to share something they learned in the breakout room, something they're going to bring back to their mentor sessions. Anybody have one little?
I think I would like Ray to make a statement of our concluding meeting. He made a powerful statement. Ray, if you want to come on and share what you stated.
Well, basically what I said is whether it's racial or generational or anything, everybody's biased. That's not the problem. It's what you do about it that becomes the problem. And I know, with me, the first time I remember thinking about not understanding why anybody as a group would hate another group as a group was I was born in southeast England, just east of London. I was born during World War II, and I don't remember that, but I do remember growing up, and we used to play in bomb sites because that was our playground, was a bomb site where the German V2 bombers that didn't quite make it to London crashed, and that's where I grew up. And I remember in the 50s when there would be family discussions, the world's problems would be the Jews and the blacks and the Jews and the black. I never heard anybody saying, and the Germans. And I remember growing up, I don't understand. I don't know any Jews. I don't know any blacks. I don't know any Germans, but I used to hear about how they bombed us. Why don't we hate them? And I never knew an answer. I never got I didn't have the nerve to ask the adults. So it was only as I got older and decided, well, why? And I started to meet Jewish people and black people and Hispanic people. And to my delight, I found most of the ones I met were just as dumb as I was. So I never understood bias for that reason. I just, other than yes, I'm biased about a lot of things. I don't understand how anybody could like rap music, but there are people that don't like country music. I don't understand that either. But yeah, so I just deal with it, go on, and that's it. And I hope that I meet people like us. So, yeah.
Thank
That's
you,
it.
Ray. I have to
I'll
tell
shut
you.
up now. Yeah.
No, I have to tell you, Ray, I really, really loved your story. Like, I feel like that was just the perfect way to end. And you touched on so many topics. And I loved your stories about childhood and growing up and, you know, just kind of putting it all into perspective. And really, you know, the goal of today is to get people together and to be able to share their stories and have these open conversations and continue to learn and have different perspectives. And again, I'm big on with empathy and relating with people. And Ray, I feel like it was like we had talked separately before the meeting, and I was like, okay, at the end, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you're going to include all of this information, and you did that for me. So thank you.
Yeah, it's like just quickly, when I first started with Big Brothers, and they paired me with a second grade Hispanic kid, and I think, what are they thinking? You know, I mean, I'm as waspish and Caucasian as they come, and I'm getting a second grade Spanish kid. And it turns out, as we got to know each other, we both had the same interest. Neither of us like sports, so go figure. You know.
Okay, great, thank you.
Lisa, can I add something?
Sure, quick. Go ahead.
First of all, please realize that 11 o'clock is a really bad time for this because lunches start at 11. So if you're mentoring lunches, it just by the grace of God, today's not my day to mentor. But doing it at lunchtime, you're hitting the block of time when people are doing lunch pals.
Okay. Thanks for the feedback. We do work to try to vary times and do different things. I know initially we had sent out a survey and gotten some feedback that this was a good time. But thank you for your feedback. And maybe next year we could, I'm going to be honest, I like the consistency of having the time on the calendar, the same time and day each month. So there's a piece of me that would like to vary it to make sure all audiences are reached. But we've heard, you know, if it's too late in the day, people can't come too early. But
well, even 1 o'clock lunches are over.
Okay.
At least at the elementary school level.
Okay. I know they're not at all, but thank you for the feedback. And again, we always,
not middle school.
Yeah, we always work on our end to try to vary, you know, to hit as many audience as possible, but also Kathy, that's part of the reason Debbie and I have prioritized recording these. And I was
I didn't know they were recorded.
Yep. So, and I can lead into that too, that I tightened up a bit and gotten better about we record the parts that we would want to share. And just so you guys know, we don't record the breakout rooms. We want to keep the topics in a space on the Pinellas County Schools website. And Debbie can, if she wants to in a minute, explain where that is. But they're all uploaded and recorded. We had a gentleman in our group that was having trouble signing on initially and missed a couple parts of the presentation. And so for that too, I'm going to rewatch this presentation and I like having the bank of it. So if it's a time that you're not able to make it, you're always welcome to go and watch the recorded sessions. For those of you that are here, rest assured, the way that we've designed these now is there's a topic to be covered. And then when you're in your breakout rooms, because we want you to be able to freely discuss, we do not record that time. And then when people pop back, like this is currently being recorded, just so you know, and then this will be part of the upload. But thank you for the feedback on the different times. I appreciate that. And we're a couple of minutes over. So again, our sessions are recorded. We'll have our next mentoring session next month. We'll be in communication with you about that. And then as a follow-up to today's meeting, I know again, Allison, thank you so much. You did a wonderful job. I really enjoyed your presentation. The feedback both in the chat box and in the breakout rooms was fantastic. And I know people really want that additional, the videos to rewatch and the self-assessment tools. So Debbie and I are going to work offline with Allison to put all that together, and we'll make sure to share those resources and materials with you. So on that note, I hope you have a wonderful day, that you have some time to grab some lunch, and we will catch up with you next month. And if you have any questions in the meantime, please reach out to me.
How do I reach out to you?
I'm sorry?
How do I reach out to you?
Well, if you want to stay